Let's go back once again to the Greek philosophers. Aristotle laid the foundations of what would become the bedrock of the Western Academy. He moved from Macedonia to Athens as a teenage orphan to study at Plato's academy. Among numerous other philosophic firsts, he wrote the first, and still most influential, text on the subject of persuasion, and the first formal exploration of logic in the Western world. His theories of persuasion and logic will be fundamental to your understanding of how to make persuasive arguments in debates. Let's start with persuasion first. Aristotle established a triad concept that is often referred to as the rhetorical triangle, or the three primary modes of persuasion. These three modes of persuasion are ethos, pathos, and logos. Logos is the soundness of your reason or logic, the ability to use facts and evidence in support of your argument. Pathos is the emotional connection to your audience. It is the speaker's ability to connect with their audience on an emotional level. Use of emotions, such as anger, fear, pity, or humor. The third component is ethos. Ethos is the credibility of the speaker. More specifically, the speaker's character, or what the audience thinks of the person speaking. Are they honest and trustworthy, or a notorious liar? Do they have personal expertise in the subject area? In order to successfully persuade your audience, all three components must be successfully deployed together. Logic alone is seldom persuasive by itself, especially if you fail to take into account the thoughts and feelings of your audience. Different persuasive environments will prioritize one or two of these modes of persuasion over another one. Some competitive debating formats will tilt the playing field all the way towards the logical strength of the arguments, whereas other formats really require the speakers to focus upon establishing an emotional connection and credibility with the audience. Let's focus on logic for the moment. Aristotle attempted to formulate a method of determining whether his philosophical arguments were correct or logically sound, in much the same way that his scientific experiments and mathematical equations could be considered accurate and true based upon formal proofs. He wanted to establish a formula to establish philosophical conclusions as facts in their own right. Aristotle's formula is known as a syllogism. A syllogism is a formal logical proof much like a mathematical formula. With logical syllogisms, one's fact-based proof moves from one logical statement to the next to reach a logical conclusion. There is extensive research and discussion on syllogisms. Today they are known in academia as symbolic logic. The basic formula of a syllogism would start with a major premise of accepted fact. It would move from the major premise to a minor premise and then reach its logical conclusion. You could think of it as a simple mathematical formula of 1 + 1 = 2. You combine your major premise with your minor premise, and that produces a necessary and obvious conclusion. The most common example is, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore Socrates is mortal. If the first two statements are obviously true, therefore, the conclusion should also be true. Let's be very clear here, for Aristotle, syllogistic logics alone are not logos. It is not a logical argument in and of itself but instead a building block. Debates aren't won and lost simply by the superior use of symbolic logic. I bring this up so that we understand that we should be thinking of truth as a process. Truth is dialectic, as opposed to a static fact that you can point to. Aristotle would have actually described the syllogistic formula as an analytic, a component, or building block, of logos. When Aristotle speaks of logos, he is referring directly to the dialectical mode of thinking we identified as the historical foundations of debate in ancient Greece. The analytics produced by syllogistic or symbolic logic are one basic component of a dialectic. They are the boards and the paint for the house that is one's logos-based argument. To establish a sense of certainty as to the facts and truth of our analytics, we must place them into a dialogic engagement, a debate.